You take medication that's tested on animals?
You still drive a car with leather seats?
You still wear the leather shoes that you had before you were vegan?
You eat food that was cooked on the same grill as meat?
Are you vegan enough?
I'm Dani.
I'm NISHA.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Hannah.
And this is
The Vegan View.
Cheers! So veganism is against the use of animals for food, fashion, or entertainment. But where do you draw the line? When are you vegan enough?
After you make the decision to go vegan, it can be really exciting because you're like, I'm doing this, I'm making a big change in the world, and then all of a sudden you start getting these little questions here and there. You know, should you take medication prescribed by a doctor if the medicine is tested on animals? Or should you get a whole new car because you have leather seats in it from before, and whether or not you should waste that? And it can be really confusing because you feel like you're not doing enough. And especially if you're trying to be vegan for the sake of the animals, you really feel like you want to be a voice for the voiceless. You want to do as much as possible. And it can be extremely overwhelming and it can seem extremely daunting. Have you guys experienced that?
Yeah, if you think about it, it almost goes to the extent where being vegan is this like so unattainable thing because in the society that we live in, they do use animal products for so many things and they use animals to test so many things. And once you open your eyes and you want to make a difference, you realize how hard it is to be perfect. And I kind of think that that's what we've all realized is that it's impossible to be perfect and we just kind of try to do our best in everyday lives. I have to take thyroid medication every single day. I don't have a thyroid. So if I literally don't take my medication, I will die, you know? So that's something that I've had to sacrifice my beliefs of not testing on animals for because I put my health before that, you know? Mm-hmm. So veganism is when, like back to what you were saying, it's you're trying to eliminate the unnecessary use. So when I'm shopping for makeup products, I will go out of my way and do a lot of research and most of the time even spend more money on products that are cruelty-free and not tested on animals because makeup is an unnecessary thing.
Right.
I don't need to sacrifice animals' lives and, you know, their happiness for makeup.
It sounds like you're doing the best you can when you can. Like whenever there's an opportunity to make the right choice or the good choice or the choice that lines up with your values, you take that choice. And I think that's what being vegan is because that's trying to expand on your compassion.
Mm-hmm. Veganism is conscious consumerism where every time we buy something, everything you buy is $1 towards something that you believe in. And I know all of us are really passionate, whether it's makeup, clothing, or household cleaning products. We really make sure to research these things because these are the things within our control that we can put our money into. And if we can decrease suffering towards animals or to anyone in the world, we're going to do it.
But I think what we've all come to realize is that once you go vegan, that does not mean you're perfect at all. That does not mean that everything that you do in your life doesn't somehow have any cruelty attached to it. I mean, I live in a house that when it was built, it probably wiped out a lot of wildlife and natural homes of animals. And although that's unfortunate, I think about it, I think that's unfair. Like, I still need to live somewhere, you know? I don't know. I just feel like even though we are vegan and we get all these questions all the time of people who mostly aren't even vegan asking us these questions, they like want to make it seem like, oh, well, since you're not perfect, like, why do you even bother?
Yeah, which is so weird that you're doing a good thing by being vegan with your diet and your consumerism, but yet you're then put under a magnifying glass and people want to see that you're doing everything perfect when if you weren't doing anything at all, you wouldn't be under that magnifying glass. Mm-hmm. And like, it's just not fair that they do that.
Yeah.
And I think vegans do it to each other a lot. And I'm even guilty of it myself sometimes. If I'm watching a vegan YouTuber, I sometimes will be like, is that a leather bag or is that a leather jacket? You know, I don't comment that or anything. I'm not a troll, but I do think it. I'm like, oh, I'm curious because I don't know. I guess it's just human nature.
That's something that you're very cautious about in your life. Like, I know you go out of your way to do a lot of research on clothing and finding out like the source of how things are made. Mm-hmm. So you just are curious to see if other vegans are doing the same thing because that's really important to you.
Even then, it's hard because I will go out of my way sometimes. Just recently, I bought a pair of boots and I emailed the company and I said, is this vegan? And they got back to me and they said, yes, it is. And I trusted them that the shoes were vegan. and they came in the mail and I wore them and I thought everything was fine because I had emailed the company directly asking them if the shoes were vegan. And then I later went to go link them again on another site and saw the description said that the soles were leather, real leather. It's just so frustrating because you try to do the best that you can, and sometimes you're not going to be perfect. And I really was trying to do the best that I can, and then I feel overwhelmingly guilty that I've done that, even though what can we do except try the best that we can. I try to buy from vegan brands when I can, but at the same time, those are really expensive companies and not everybody can afford that, including myself. So, you know, you just do the best that you can.
We don't live in a vegan world. That's just...
I think that's a really important distinction, is like where you draw the line is when it's not you who's coming up short, it's society's standards that are cut short. Like them not providing you the proper information, or like when you get an item and you think it's vegan and then you find out weeks later there's an article published that they test on animals when you saw another one tested on animals, because I was telling you about that highlighter I bought. So I had spent weeks like researching what highlighters were vegan, and I found like 4 articles about this one, the Becca highlighter, Champagne Pop. They all said it was vegan, cruelty-free. So I bought it, used it, and then weeks later, I always continually do research just to kind of check and make sure everything's okay. And then I found an article that the red coloring in it was animal-made. And it's just so frustrating because I had this huge, full compact of highlighter. I didn't come up short because I did do all the research, but it's just not readily available. So sometimes you do make mistakes, and now I won't buy it ever again.
But then what do? Do you be wasteful and throw that away when, first off, you spent your hard-earned money on it, and to throw that in the trash is wasteful and going against what our main goal is anyways. It's hard.
And it's the same thing with zero waste. People often associate zero waste or plastic-free living
with veganism.
Yeah, because it's an eco-friendly kind of thing. But you and I are both really passionate about it, and I've started throwing stuff away and recycling and repurposing things for years, and I've only started getting really good at it, but it's a slow process. And it isn't veganism. It isn't consuming animal products.
And you don't do it because you're trying to be perfect.
Yeah,
you didn't go vegan to be perfect, and you don't participate in zero waste or minimal waste to be perfect. That's not the point. And I feel like a lot of times when this type of stuff comes up, I think it all comes down to intention. And if your intention is to do the best you can to eliminate animal suffering, to improve your health, to help preserve the environment, then that is going to sort of like inform the decisions that you make, and you're going to make good choices based on that. I think it's when you start to get really obsessed with the ideology and start like trying to focus on these tiny little things. Like we talk about white sugar all the time. You don't necessarily lose the point or lose the focus, but you can get really caught up in the nitty-gritty. That can make it seem very difficult to be vegan to other people. It can also really infuriate you because the amount of information that you're going to be able to get is very limited sometimes. Like with wine, I'm a somm and I am always looking for vegan wines. I want to do a vegan wine series on my channel. And there's a lot of, I feel like, responsibility to be able to make sure that this wine is vegan. And even though the things I've looked up say that they're vegan, and I've even spoken to some different vineyards and stuff, a lot of times they don't even know. Like they have to like get back to me with emails, and there's very few resources, and it can be really frustrating. And same thing with white sugar. To any of you who don't know, some sugar is vegan, some isn't. And the ones that aren't vegan, or the kinds that aren't vegan, are basically white sugars that are bleached with animal bones or animal char. Filtered through, right? It just helps get that really light, bright color. It's a filtration system. It's not actually in the sugar. And we were listening to a video earlier from a natural vegan who was talking about how whether or not a company uses that is really like sort of the cheapest way that they can filter. So like if that's cheapest that week, then they're going to use that. There's another one. So it changes all the time, and it's really difficult to find out with Oreos, for example, if they use it or not. It can change like depending on what sugar they use, what distributor they're buying from. It's really just a matter of kind of figuring out like whether or not that having Oreos or having wine or whatever it is important enough to you or not. And if it's not, then don't. But it's very hard to pinpoint every single little thing.
Speaking of Oreos, a lot of people think that palm oil isn't vegan. For me, I'm very conscious about the palm oil I consume as a person, but because I have a social media account and because I have a YouTube channel. Sometimes I will show people products with palm oil in it because they're more relatively available in their area, and I'd rather have them not eating animals than not consuming palm oil and eating animals, if that makes sense, because I feel like that decreases suffering on a larger scale.
And there's palm oil in non-vegan products as well.
Exactly. But intrinsically, palm oil isn't not vegan itself. It's a plant. But it does hurt orangutans because it does take away their habitat, even though it's not vegan itself. So I do try to stay away from it because I'm conscious of that, but it's the same thing with chocolate. Chocolate is not ethically made in most cases, but in certain cases it is, and it's so hard to get down to the minutia of whether it's ethical or not, but intrinsically, if it doesn't have animal products, it is vegan.
I think you had a great point there talking about appealing to a wider scale of people. The whole reason I decided to start talking about veganism on my blog and YouTube channels was because I care so much about veganism that I want everybody to see that it can be easy. And especially in my own life, when I tell people I'm vegan, I get a response of, oh, that's so hard, that must be so difficult, blah, blah, blah. It fuels my fire even more to show people that it's really not that hard and it's so obtainable and anybody can do it. I think we need to start thinking about the end goal and the bigger picture as far as what we're putting out there for the world to promote veganism, and that is to end animal suffering, and that's through not eating meat, not eating dairy, not buying products that are tested on animals or include animal products in them. And that's the biggest change that needs to happen in this world as a whole for veganism to really take over. And then we can start going in and looking at the minutia details. And if you as a person yourself want to do that, which I know you mentioned the no waste, and I'm starting my journey very, very new, just really even kind of found out about it, then that's up to you. But at the same time, I think there's a difference between doing it in a helpful way and doing it in a way that you're not vegan enough because you used this and that makes you not vegan enough, because that's unappealing to people who aren't vegan. And that's the last thing we want, is for anyone to say, I can't go vegan now because I can't do all of that. I can't be perfect. I can't change my life overnight. And if we make it this thing that's easy and attainable and everyone can do it, then that's going to be more appealing to people.
We also have a privilege that we live in LA, which is a very vegan-friendly city, and so we can avoid products with palm oil. We have that privilege to invest our dollar in something we believe in, but a lot of people live in places that don't have things, that don't have these ingredients, but they are intrinsically vegan. Like, you can really...
that's their vegan.
You can really be pretty much vegan, like, living anywhere. It's harder to eat out certain places. There are food deserts and stuff like that don't have vegetables or anything available, but it's pretty easy to be basically vegan and eliminate animal products at home anywhere. But that's a privilege that not everyone has.
Something I try to remind myself a lot is that once you go vegan, you kind of like want to go all out, like leave your lifestyle, go move somewhere that's super vegan friendly, live a no-waste life. Like, you have this, like, you see people doing that and you're like, there's part of you that's like, wow, that's so amazing and I would love to live my life like that, But I try to remind myself that also it's, I think, really important to have a vegan life that's very similar to like the standard American life, but just veganized, because I think that that's going to attract more people, and just make them realize that it's just a small switch in your diet. It doesn't have to change your whole life. You don't have to move. You don't have to stop living in a house. You don't have to stop getting your hair done. You don't have to stop buying clothes.
You just need to buy more consciously.
Yeah, you just have to, do a little Googling before you buy shampoo. Do a little Googling before you go to the grocery store. I mean, my life has changed so much since I went vegan. I feel like internally, but then I look at it from the outside and it really hasn't changed that much. And I feel like that is important to keep that part of my life like kind of similar to the way it was before I was vegan, because I don't want my life to seem like so drastically different from my family and make them think that being vegan changed me and like, I don't want it to seem like this unattractive thing. Even though to me, like, living in Hawaii and like eating fruit all day seems like so cool, but also I know that's just not realistic for most people. So I think that showing people how they can still live their life normally but also ethically is kind of important.
I think too with things like keeping the stuff you had from before you're vegan is a really interesting thing. I really didn't have a ton of like, I obviously never had fur, but like leather, I never really had a lot of leather, honestly, just because I'm kind of cheap and it was like expensive. But I have like a pair of shoes, a pair of boots that they're like booties that are suede, and I bought them before I was vegan, and I still have them because it's like, why would they're in perfect condition, and I'm like, why would I throw these away? But I do understand the argument of people being like, no, after you go vegan, like that grosses you out, and like sometimes it does gross me out and I won't wear them, but at the same time, every time I go out to throw them away, I feel like I don't want it to be in vain, you know? It's like it's already done and I already had them and I don't want to be wasteful about it, but I will never buy another leather product again. If people ask me where they're from, like I'll say I don't remember or something, just because I'm not going to promote that. And I don't wear them if I know I'm going to have a picture taken or something, because I know that, you know, it's like not something I condone on a social level, but at the same time, it's something that I've made a decision in my life. But I think, again, going back to what your intention is, like why you're vegan, it's to be compassionate. So it's like if you see someone doing like 95% or even 99% of the work of being vegan, and they're making a conscious effort and consuming consciously, instead of like tearing them down because they have an Oreo, like maybe say there are other types of Oreos or Oreo knockoffs that don't have palm oil, but there's a way of doing it that also reflects your veganism and your compassion that is going to be helpful without like breaking that person down and making them not want to be vegan. To me, veganism is compassion.
Yeah, and everybody's on their own journey and we forget that, and it's really hard for me sometimes too, because I have family members that are trying, they really are trying, and they've cut out meat, but they still eat eggs and dairy. And they're looking at more cruelty-free options now that I've started talking about, oh, that's cruelty-free, that's not cruelty-free. For example, I have a friend that didn't know nail polish wasn't vegan or cruelty-free, and she was disgusted when she found out what carmine was and that it's actually in makeup and beauty products. And so she's trying to make the change, but then every time she eats something with cheese, I get sad. Then I have to be like, well, can I be just happy that she's not eating meat anymore? And that's such a huge change for her personally, and just be happy and help her on her journey along the way, rather than point out all the things that she does that aren't vegan or are cruel. You know, it's like,
just because someone's not ready to do everything doesn't mean they can't do something.
Yeah.
And when they are doing something, I think
let's
it's
be encouraging
to encourage that rather than to blame them for not doing it all the way.
Yeah, because that's not appealing to anybody.
And I haven't been vegan my whole life, so why should I put that much pressure on someone who's kind of vegan and maybe uses, I don't know, some non-cruelty-free makeup? Just because I use completely cruelty-free makeup and that's something super important to me, they might just not be there yet. I think it's really cool when people address us in the comments like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but that might not be vegan, or I'm not trying to blame you. Like, they're talking to us the way they would speak to us in real life, rather
as
than
a friend,
if you're commenting on something or just saying something to someone, there's a human behind the computer. There's a human in real life in front of you when you're confronting them like that. And I love when there's that compassion and that, hey, I'm just here for you, not against you, you know?
We're all just doing our best, and we're trying to reduce as much suffering as we can. But we don't live in a vegan world, and it's impossible for us to be perfect all the time. And I'm sure you come across that in your life. If you are perfect, congratulations. But
good job.
I'm really proud of you.
Don't let someone tear you down from doing a great thing just because it's not a perfect thing.
And also there's a way, like with parenting, right? They always say that you should, or in relationships, if you're trying to get your boyfriend to do something. I say parenting, but I really mean like manipulating your boyfriend.
Parenting, boyfriending,
same thing. Basically, you reward the behavior that you like and you want to see more of, and you sort of don't really, they say the most effective way is to just sort of be neutral to, not like neutral or sort of unresponsive to the behavior you don't. Because we're also like reward motivated, and we're also confrontational. So if you aren't getting that reward or that kind of attention from when you do something, then you're going to be less likely to do it. But on the opposite of that, if you are getting sort of like mean comments and people are putting you down, or people are yelling at you for like using a certain kind of makeup, for example, you're going to be really defensive and combative. So what I like to do is, instead of saying like to your friends, I mean, if it's a close friend, you can say, hey, did you know? You know, and that's totally fine. Like you said, it's the way you say it. But let's say you want to be a positive example for a large number of people. You can say, this makeup, this bronzer that I love is amazing, and it doesn't have any of this ingredient that's commonly found in things, and it's so pretty and it's so affordable and whatever. And then people will be like, wait, what? I didn't know that that was it. And then they'll see that there's a way of putting energy out there in a positive way that's not judgmental. It's not mean.
So what is each of your opinions on where you draw the line? Where is vegan enough for you?
I don't eat anything that I know has animal products in it. So I also, which a lot of people choose not to, well, like if something is cooked on the same grill or fried in the same oil, if the actual item that I'm buying and eating is not an animal product, I don't have a problem with that. I don't see how refusing to eat French fries that are cooked in the same oil as chicken fingers is saving any animals. I mean, I understand how some people might think it's gross because
From like a health standpoint.
the French fries might be cooked with flavor of the chicken or whatever, but I just don't see how that's saving any animals by avoiding those French fries. So that's where I draw the line for myself. I do as much as I can within my knowledge.
I don't obviously eat any animal products, or buy any animal products like leather or anything like that, wool, etc. If I have for like cooking purposes, a lot of the time, I don't buy honey because I make recipes for vegan people and people who are curious, and so I don't use honey in that regard. Sugar, if I can buy vegan sugar, which I can because Whole Foods and I have access to it. Also, Thrive Market. Everyone in America has access to that if they want. You can get vegan sugar, but let's say I'm going to a friend's house. They're not vegan. I will totally bring Oreos. Everybody loves Oreos. I will bring Oreos because it's like that's something familiar and not weird. And
I'm just like you.
right? I'm like, I love Oreos too, guys. Are we friends now?
I'm the same way.
No, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to bring that because it's familiar, and it shows that it's not, like you said earlier, like this other thing, this other weird lifestyle. Like, it's totally normal. The Unnatural Vegan actually said in her video, she was like, the more we focus on eliminating animal suffering and the purchases of animals, the fewer byproducts there are going to be available anyway too. So like you really have to focus on the bigger picture of like getting more people to eat less meat.
Yeah, because bone char is a byproduct.
It's a byproduct.
It's not
like animals aren't dying because people want sugar. They're dying, and then people are using what's left over because it's cheap and it's so widely available.
Yeah.
So for me, on a social standpoint, if I'm going to a friend's house for dinner or like a wine and appetizer night, if they're the ones providing the wine, I'm not going to check if it's vegan or not. I bring my own vegan wine and I do the best that I can. But a lot of times I'll have friends that make stuff for me, and I'm sure that the butter probably has palm oil in it or whatever it is, and I'm going to eat it because, like you, I want to make veganism look so fun and so easy and enjoyable that it appeals to everybody. I already feel like just me being different from people kind of separates me a little bit, and I don't want this to look like stand in the corner, no fun kind of lifestyle. For me, something I'm really passionate about is animal testing because I am a crazy animal lady. It's what like drew me to veganism in the first place, and I have a video on my channel about my standpoint on this, so I won't go too far into it, but I am really passionate about still buying products from companies that are cruelty-free, even if their parent company is not cruelty-free, because I feel like it's a vote with your dollar, and the big companies are the ones that are testing on animals, and so the only way that we're going to get animal testing to end is if those big companies stop testing on animals. And while I don't think that you should not buy from smaller companies, because I absolutely love to shop small and I want those companies to grow and eventually be the bigger companies, I also think that you have to keep in mind that the bigger companies are the ones that we need to be going after. And if we're buying their products that are their cruelty-free brands that are under their umbrella, and we stop buying from the brands that aren't cruelty-free, they're eventually going to not have those brands that are testing on animals because nobody's buying them anymore. So, the L'Oreals, the Estee Lauders, we need them to make the change because they're the ones that are still funding the animal testing in China, and if we can get that to end, then we can get animal testing to end. So to me, that's vegan enough, and I know people don't think that's vegan enough because they don't want anything near animal testing, but I actually don't see it that way because I see it as I want to end that so badly that my vote, my vote with my dollar is going to support that. And I email companies all the time asking them what products are vegan, or when NARS decided to stop testing on animals, I had no problem commenting on their social media and posting on my own social media saying to boycott them. I feel like that's something that you can do on your own to get these companies questioning things, and that's going to be a huge thing for them because if they don't get any emails from anybody asking them if a product's vegan or not, then they're not even going to think about it. We would love to hear from you guys if you also feel this pressure to be a perfect vegan and what some of your examples are in experiencing that. So leave in the comments down below, and don't forget to join our Facebook group. We have a great group of people in there and it's super fun, and we'll have all of our personal channels linked down below, and don't forget to follow our Instagram as well, and we'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!